Sorry about the weather. Obligatory. It's great to see so many people here, obviously, especially the Southern contingent, and getting here so early. Just feel like the tables are turned slightly. I'm not down in London, so that's great. Welcome to the first wonderful World of Field event. We sort of feel that field events have sort of been abandoned a little bit by the MRS and the EQR over recent years, so we thought we would try and do something. We thought we'd dwindle in numbers to these events, possibly because of content rather than a lack of passion amongst people who are really interested in field. So we thought that we don't want to talk at length about holiday pay and data protection, and we really don't need a 2-day conference on an industrial park in Sutton Coldfield, followed by a rather dodgy DJ to do that. So we thought we'd try something slightly different this year. However, saying that, I would like to thank the AQR, because they've got on board with us really well. They sponsored the event, and they really try and appreciate what we're trying to do. So the MRS said they couldn't get involved because it was a conflict of interest, because they were going to do something similar this summer, but that's gone, I think. Anyway, it's October. So, anyway, we tried to keep the topics broad and interesting, and they're all relatable to field, but we just thought we'd give you some food for thought and debate rather than just lecturing at everybody. So that's what we're trying to do. There is still a social event, of course. It's not a dodgy DJ, but we've got a live band, canapes and loads of drinks later, obviously. All sponsored by the wonderful Research Now, who will be here later. But obviously, if you really can't stand the party and our company any longer, you are in the city centre, so you can make your own trouble. Although it's not karaoke Tuesday, obviously. Missed that. So sorry about that. Quickly, just to say thank you to all our sponsors. We know it's a huge ask to sponsor an event when it's the first year it's run. So just to mention, again, Research Now, QRI Consulting, Pitch & Co and Aspect. Thank you. You'll see on the shares you've got a conference pack. There is in there a voting form for best paper, a small prize for that. There is a feedback form, clearly that's very important for us. So that will be sent out as a link afterwards as well if you don't want to fill it in. But hand it in to anybody if you do. There are some goodies in there as well. I believe not everyone's entirely sure what the little orange thing in there is, but it's a biscuit form to on the side. There you go. So, just lastly from me, a small bit of housekeeping. Obviously there's Wi-Fi, it's the Aspect, and the password is Canal ST1, 6 Canal Street 1. And if you want to tweet anything during the conference, feel free. Just hashtag WWWF. And we will be updating that as well throughout. Fire exits through the door, up the spiral staircase, or up the spiral staircase, and through the back. Meeting points in the car park, around the back of the building. Toilets are through there and then on every floor, so just ask me or Amy or anybody about them if you've got any queries. All breakouts will be up on the 3rd floor where you've been, and that's where lunch will be served. And obviously feel free to go out and get some air at the breaks. Obviously if you're smoking, can you just not leave the door ajar, and we'll let you in when you're finished. If we're not there, just press the buzzer and someone will let you in. So, that's that. Without further ado, we've got our first speaker, Kath Rhodes of Claro. She's got 20 years, over 20 years experience in qual research, and she'll be presenting her paper on co-creation and what this means, especially for us field workers who might want a bit more information on this. So, let's go.
I'm not used to using a microphone, so if you can't hear me at the back, can you put your hand up and then I will use the microphone, if that's all right. So, yes, thank you very much. I'm here to tell you about co-creation, and as you can see from that chart, it says Aunt Bessie's on it. I know that you're not Aunt Bessie's, but this is a presentation that we prepared at Claro to show our clients, and then more recently I went into Aunt Bessie's engagement, which is why it's got Aunt Bessie's on the thing. So what I'm going to take you through is what we have showed our clients about co-creation, and I'm hoping that it will be of interest to you from a field perspective. Do ask questions at the end if there's anything you want to know. So I guess the first thing to tell you is a little bit of history about how I came to do this presentation. And basically, I was going out for coffee with a client not into co-creation, you're going to lose out. This is where the business is going in the future, and so if you want to stay up with the game or ahead or get ahead of the game, you need to do co-creation. And I thought, oh shit, I don't even know what that is. I better go away and do a bit of research, and that's what I did. So what happened was we went back to Nestle, who my friend was the client for, and we said, why don't we do a co-creation project together, and we'll jointly fund it, and then we can work out what works really well in co-creation, and you can get a really cheap project for hardly any money. And because we offered them a really cheap project for hardly any money, they went for it, and it was really useful for us because it allowed us to try out co-creation and experiment with it and see what does and doesn't work. So what I'm going to take you through is a kind of a background about what co-creation is. Then I'm going to tell you a bit of a review of what happened in our project, the highs and the lows, the pitfalls and all of that kind of stuff. And then I'm not going to take you through this bit unless you're really interested, but we did then develop a working model of co-creation for our client's business to say this is how we think you ought to do co-creation in the future if you want to. I don't think that's 100% relevant for you, but if you get to that bit and you go, no, I really want to know, I can take you through it, and then there are some conclusions at the end. So just to go back to this slide, all of these pictures represent different stages in a market research career. And when Abby introduced me and said, oh, Kath's been doing this for 20 years, it made me feel awful because it kind of says old lady in research. But actually, the good thing about it is that I've been through a lot of different processes. So can you see there's some different coloured hats on the screen? So we all went through an Edward de Bono thinking hats process where we did workshops inspired by Edward de Bono. So that was one stage that we went through. Another stage that we went through was ethnography. So I don't know if you remember that stage where everything had to be ethnographic. And it wasn't necessarily ethnographic, we just liked to put that tag word on it and kind of say, oh no, it's ethnography. And then it felt like co-creation was another of these next big things that came along. And so I think that's where we're kind of at in the marketplace at the moment. So I know you're all absolutely burning to know, so what is co-creation? So now I'm going to tell you. We did loads of research when my client said you need to be in co-creation and tried to figure out, well, what was it? And actually it didn't feel like there was one thing that it was a tag that people were giving to a particular type of research. But co-creation definitely seemed to involve some kind of online element, some kind of element of panels with people online where they would upload information about themselves. So in some senses, co-creation is a mix of different things that all come under the title, and online panels is one of them. And then also, co-creation also seems to involve workshops. So you've got your online panels, and then you've got client-facing workshops that seem to be part of the mix. And the last bit of the mix, the third bit, is consumers recording their behaviour. So what we can see is that technology is allowing us to do research in a slightly different way and package it as co-creation. So the recording element might be somebody tweeting every day, for example, or it might be taking a picture when they're in a store, if they're buying a can of Coke, that they then send it through to the client. The workshop bit is clients and consumers working together, and then the online bit is where consumers come together online. And it seems to be all of those three elements to a greater or lesser degree in every project. Let me give you two case studies to give you a flavour, some examples of co-creation. I don't know whether you've come across this before, but this is the kind of the high end, I think, of co-creation. So Nike recruited a number of people who were really keen on sports, who were leading edge sports people across the globe, and they became part of the Nike panel, and they then uploaded their thoughts and feelings about doing sport, what it was like, so that Nike could instantly tap in and see what it was like to be a sports person. They then invited some of the best panel members, the people that had done the best online inputs, to come along to a workshop with them in New York. And so Nike officials and the sports people got together, and they came up with some new ideas for sportswear for the future. And that's co-creation because they got together and created together. And then they all went out onto the street in New York and held up their ideas in front of people, to the general public, and went, excuse me, what do you think of this idea? And then they came back into the workshop and refined the ideas, and then the final stage was that everybody who was on the Nike panel then had a look at the ideas. So you can see that it's clients and consumers working together. There's no researchers in that mix, is there? And that's why this feels really relevant as a field topic, because goodbye researchers, hello field recruitment is one of the themes of co-creation. Phew, you're thinking, and about time too, probably. Oh, sorry. Other example of co-creation, which I really like because I think it's really cheeky, is on their website, Lego invite people to come up with new ideas for the next great bit of Lego kit. And as you can imagine, there's probably some Lego heads out there that are in their 40s, that live on their own, that kind of thing. And these are the sort of people that would probably think, because you play with Lego, because you're looking at Okay. So you can imagine that this invitation for some people would be really worthwhile. So the people that are involved with Lego to that degree then email Lego with their ideas, and the prize is that you get your great idea invented or made by Lego. So literally, Lego are using consumers to come up with their next big idea, and that's what part of co-creation is all about. So essentially, this is the definition I got, I think, from Wikipedia. It is about stakeholders within a business, and that can be anyone. Their workers, their marketing teams, their creative agencies, and their customers, all working together at the same time for a shared goal. And the benefit of that is really that it's no more us and them, it's just all about us. So if you think about, for example, if you love coffee like I do, you might want to get involved with Costa Coffee because you might actually want them to produce some better coffee, so you just get together with them. You're the consumer, the benefit to you is you get something better that you like, and the client benefits from being really in touch with what the consumer wants. And the interesting thing about that, of course, is that there is no researcher in the middle of that, is there? It's just kind of that direct channel. So, one of the question marks we then had about co-creation was, well, how can we as researchers muscle in on this game, but also how open do the lines of communication need to be? So one of the companies that does co-creation really well, and I can never remember, and this is a big apology if you're here, but it's either Coke or Pepsi, but they have a panel of people, and their insight managers within that organisation get tweets from their panel automatically every day and inputs directly from them every day. So basically, they're set up, their whole organisation is set up for co-creation purposes. And equally, you can see from the Nike perspective that they were really set up to do that. But if you think about most market research managers within an organisation, they probably don't have the time or the ability to be co-creating the whole time. They've got other projects that are ongoing where they just simply can't do that. And that's where we thought, hang on a minute, maybe there is a role for researchers, because not every client can just be co-creating the whole time. They've got other things to do in their lives. So what we set out to do in our project is to think, how can we do co-creation so it's no more us and them, but so that it's practical for our clients with the 17 other projects that they're running at the same time. And that was what our experiment was all about. So, what I'm going to do now is tell you about Claro co-creating with Nestle. And if you know any of the Claro team members, you'll know that's none of us. Okay. So, our foray into co-creation. What Nestle wanted to do was to develop, in a kind of a classic way, their objective was a really simple, ordinary market research project. They wanted to develop a new chocolate bar with a specific target market in mind. And then all of a sudden you think, oh yeah, this could really work with co-creation, because all we need to do is put that target with the client and they can co-create, and off they go. So usually standard techniques would be about kicking off with a bit of insight from research. So you can imagine Nestle, please recruit, I don't know, women 18 to 35, particular target group. You might then have an idea generation co-creation workshop after you've done some insight, and then you might do some concept testing. But we wanted to do co-creation. And the first thing that was really interesting was that Nestlé said to us, we want to do co-creation. And we'd done all this research about what co-creation was. So we thought, oh, okay, they're going to want to do this stuff where they're online with the consumers and they're going to want to keep in touch with them and do workshops. And actually, what Nestlé thought co-creation was simply doing workshops with consumers. So the first big issue that we think co-creation highlights is that not everybody knows what it means. It isn't well defined. So if a researcher came to you and said, we want to do some co-creation, I think one of the things you might want to say to them is, oh, okay, when you say co-creation, what do you actually mean by that? Are you just saying you want to recruit some consumers to do a workshop? Or is this something more? Do you want to actually do something a little bit different? And the other thing that's really important is that if you're time constrained, it might be more effective to take the standard path to qual research. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this project happened 2 years ago, and it was this time, it was maybe a bit later, it's November, when Nestlé said to us, we want to do co-creation. And then they said, we want the results before Christmas. So we were thinking, hang on a minute, workshops, recording behaviour, coming up with new concept ideas, testing them all out. We're in November now, that's really difficult. So if you want to do co-creation, I guess the other thought is that it is more time consuming and you would need to tell your clients that if you want to do this properly, then you need to kind of put some more time behind it. So what did we therefore do if we were so time constrained? Well, I think our lovely co-creation is going to pop up there yet. So we came up with 3 parts to our methodology because we wanted to experiment with all aspects of co-creation, but we needed to do it fast. So what we recommended to our client was that they recruited 15 lovely ladies that were lively and creative. So I know probably your first thought is, oh, what do you mean by creative? So that's a whole other question that we need to think about for co-creation. And these women had to be willing to spend a 2-hour kickstart workshop, so they had to be willing to turn up. Then they had to be willing to do loads of intensive, snack-orientated co-creation tasks. So they had their workshop, then they were sent away to do loads of tasks. Then we wanted to do a final workshop where we generated new ideas with them, and they had to be up for that as well. Well, why did we choose that method? Why did we choose those 3 stages? Well, what we wanted to do with a kickstart workshop was actually get everybody involved. So if co-creation is about clients and consumers coming together, we need to introduce the consumers to the client's thinking. So the kickstart workshop was all about telling them we want to invent a chocolate bar for you and we want you to start thinking in that way about chocolate bars. And also we wanted to make it really fun so that all these lovely ladies would start to feel like they were on the chocolate team. So a kickstart workshop was a really good way of actually getting everybody really excited about the whole process. And the other thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to get everybody up for doing their homework because, as you'll know, with horrible pre-tasks, nobody ever does them quite the way the researcher wants to do them, and nobody ever gets enough time to do them. And what respondents will do is the minimum for the maximum amount of money. We know that from having done research for many years. So what we thought was, if we do this kickstart workshop with them, we can explain to everybody the rules of engagement. We can say to them, you've really got to do your homework really, really well. And we could also explain to them the kind of incentives that they were going to be getting and the expectations that we had of them. So one of the things that's different is that this is essentially like a briefing meeting, isn't it, for respondents, but obviously you have to make it fun because you have to make them up for it. And the other thing that we found really, really useful in this Kickstart workshop was that we only really wanted to take 12 people through to our final panel. So what we wanted to do was to weed out the stinkers, anybody that we thought wasn't going to be creative or was going to be negative in the process. And we ended up with 14 lovely ladies because one person, she was just wasn't fitting in. And I know that sounds really horrible, but we never promised everybody that they would go all the way through. So they kind of knew that it might be this and the next thing and the next thing. And it was really worthwhile actually being able to do that. So they had a variety of tasks that they went on, and then they were invited back for their final workshop. So how did we make the whole thing happen? Well, one of the things we did was to set up a website so that respondents could blog on it, and that was really easy. So basically you can set up a website now for free virtually, and there are tools to do it. So there was nothing fancy pants about actually having this kind of website, and there are loads of online tools to help you do that. I am really illiterate when it comes to technology. I'm not a big Twitter or Facebook person, but even I managed to cope with this. And the other thing that we did to make it happen, which I think you will probably appreciate, is that we actually paid people a whole load of money for doing it. So we paid the respondents 250 quid for doing the whole process, and they got tons of chocolate as an incentive. Something with chocolate was definitely, the kind of thing that closed the deal. And this for me is really important, that if you're going to ask somebody to do co-creation, you're not asking them to be a respondent, you're asking them to be coming up with ideas, being on your Nestle team. You can't pay them a piddling incentive, you've actually got to pay them for their time and motivate them. And I guess the only downside that maybe you're thinking about is that's a bit depressing for a recruiter, isn't it? Where I don't know whether you're thinking that, but that she's not going to get a huge amount of money for recruiting these people and they're going to get big bucks. But anyway, that was one of the things that we did. And the other reason why we did that was because Nestle were paying the costs of the project, so obviously they paid that big bucks, and not necessarily would they always kind of be in agreement to do that. And then what we did, which was really different and just made all of the difference, and I think if you wanted to do co-creation with your clients, you will need to think of a way of doing this. We allocated a project manager to stay on top of those respondents. So she became their buddy. She came along to the initial workshop, she met them, she chatted to them, and she was virtually on the phone to them every day. So when they uploaded a pre-task, if they hadn't really done their job properly, she was on the phone to them going, oh, it's brilliant, it's fantastic, but would you mind just doing a little bit more? And she was a really important part of the process. And she had loads of charm, and she was kind of in their age group so that she could connect with them as well. And I think she is now friends with some of the respondents. The thing that we didn't do is put enough time aside for it, because actually it was a time-consuming project for us as researchers in terms of thinking through the Kickstart workshop, all of the things that we needed to do, and then making sure that we had all of the tasks going on for the next 2 or 3 weeks before they came to the final workshop that were interesting and stimulating and all of that kind of stuff. And because I work in an ordinary process where I've got depths or groups, then I do analysis, then I write a debrief, I just didn't have any time in my diary to do this extra stuff that co-creation sort of throws up. It doesn't fit in with the normal way of things, so as researchers we have to be really careful to manage our time a bit better. So what did we do in that Kickstart workshop? Well, very briefly, we gave respondents ownership of the issue, so that's different from normal research. We introduced Sophie, the project manager. We did some fun techniques, which was really, really nice, and actually revealed loads, because we had never thought that this Kickstart workshop would give us insight. And what we found out was that we learned loads about chocolate consumption from that very first day. So one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was we just got everyone to find their chocolate twin. So people had to write down their favourite chocolate bars, and then everyone mingled in the room to see who liked what, and that was really good fun. And it kind of levelled clients up with consumers, because everybody loves chocolate, and so everyone, well not everybody does, but so that they could all kind of have fun with each other. Then we talked about chocolate and snacking behaviour. We did a bit of breakout. This was interesting. The client wanted to develop their concepts based on what they call need states. So I don't know if it's a term that you're familiar with, but one need state might be, or a perfect one is, that 3 o'clock in the afternoon dip where you're a bit tired and a bit bored, you need something to pick you up. Well, Nestle would describe that as a need state. So we did some exploration around need states because we knew that when we were going to come to the final workshop, we were going to have to workshop ideas to meet different need states. And then we gave them their first bit of homework in that Kickstart workshop as well. So let me highlight for you some issues that came up from that Kickstart. The first one was that actually clients are used to standing back and watching consumers, and they didn't get in there. They didn't just act in it. So the consumers were speaking, and they were a bit like, oh yeah, okay. And if it's going to be real and everyone's going to be mingling with each other, you all need to be on the same level. So one bit of feedback that we would have given to Nesso, we did give it to them, is get in there. You are a participant now. You can't stand back and be a client. You're co-creating. So that was one finding that we had. The other thing was that from a researcher point of view, we realised that there was loads of insight that was happening in the room, but because we hadn't been expecting to get it, we hadn't done anything about that. So what we would say and what we've done in future is have loads of recording devices all around the room so that you can capture loads of insight wherever it happens. And then finally, this is perhaps just an issue to myself, but you need to leave time to then work out what's happened in that first session as a researcher so that you can kind of work out what you want to do for your tasks ongoing. And as I've already mentioned, it was really great that we could screen out a lady that just wasn't suitable for taking part in research. What I want to show you now is one of the tasks that was ongoing. We asked people to keep a 3-day diary, and it was about all of their snacking consumption. The idea was that clients would look at the diary and therefore immerse themselves in the world of the consumers. And we got some fantastic responses from them. So we had a diary on the Thursday, the Friday and the Saturday, and that was also really useful because we had weekend consumption. In fact, some people must have done the diary on the Sunday as well. And we were absolutely delighted with the level of response that we got from people. It was better than the little scribbly scrawls that you tend to get from people as they're going along. But what it also revealed was the respondents knew each other. Because we were reading their diary, they were going, we went out, we got really drunk and we ended up in la la la. And then you'd read somebody else's diary and it would be, I went out, got really drunk and ended up in la la la. And you're like, hang on a minute, you were friends. So one of the things that co-creation does is if you're getting to know people really well, you're going to see into their lives and you're going to see that the recruiter has actually recruited a bunch of mates when actually she's told you that she hasn't. So the co-creation is that detailed that it does reveal things like that. The other thing that was really interesting about it was that we thought we were uploading these to clients, and there were 15, or there was 14 by this time, girls doing their diaries. There was no way that clients had time to read through all this stuff. So one of the other findings that we had, and I don't know if it's going to pop up on the thing now yet, but it throws up masses of information and data, and we need, first of all as researchers, new skills to interpret and understand that, because that's really different from just listening to people talking in groups. And also, we had assumed that our client would be sort of absorbing all of that information, and that wasn't really how it happened. So in future projects, what we've done is we've tasked ourselves to do all of the looking and the analysis, and then we feed clients back with, here are the key snippets, things that are really interesting for you. So it does go to show that co-creation is an ideal, and actually researchers have a role for it because clients just don't have the time to keep going. And then lastly, just wanted to show you just an example. This was our website, and one of the things that we got people to do was to upload images that expressed things that we could then use later on in the final workshop. So one of the things that our client wanted was they wanted to know what femininity meant to people because they were targeting this chocolate at lovely young ladies. So we got them to upload a load of images that expressed femininity to them. And we did some other words like busy because we knew that they led busy lives and so on and so forth. And we then used those images to stimulate our thinking when we came to the final workshop. We also posted up questions, and we had votes on things on our website as well. So we got different ways of getting insight about our consumers before they came to the final workshop. And what we also found was that these images were really great for us to be able to analyse from as well. So I found this really interesting. What does femininity mean to you? And obviously the little Britain thing is hilarious down there. But it seems to be about artifice, about creating something that you're not. And it's when you see all of those images together that you learn something about what femininity is that can then really help you understand how to connect with women of those ages. But also, if you're necessary, you might get a colour palette from that as well to help the designers think about what the packaging would look like, for example. So that was feminine. Then we had busy. And that was just kind of interesting to get a little window in their lives as to when they felt busy, why they felt busy, and how they felt busy. And then actually this is my total favourite, which is favourite, because obviously Nestle want their chocolate bar to become a favourite. And my favourite one is the one down there with the girls in the bath, because she'd got her mates around and taken that photo for the co-creation project. And doesn't that show you that they were enjoying this? They actually made it into a really fun task. So one of the lovely things about co-creation is that you don't invite respondents in to chat for a couple of hours about chocolate and then off they go home. They really do start to feel like they're part of this and that they're having a good time and that it's fun. This didn't work, and that's why I wanted to show you this. So we tried to get people to do a need state task where we describe what the need state was, you know, like that lull thing. And then I can't particularly remember what we asked them to do, but what we realised was that there are some things that consumers won't understand because it's too clienty in the way that you're thinking about it. So the other side of things is to just make things really simple and make things really workable from a consumer point of view. And then the last thing I wanted to say, there's Sophie, who was the project manager, but we really hassled those people. We got them all to take photos of themselves at the initial day so that we knew who we were talking to when we were talking to them. We texted them, we emailed them, Sophie chased them up. And so I would say that if you wanted to offer your clients, we do co-creation and we can manage a co-creation panel for you, you would need to think about a project manager. And Sophie did a lot of this in the evening. So it's not a 9 to 5 job, is it? Because when you want people to be uploading and doing their homework, it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So you need to shift the way you're doing things if you want to run co-creation. So ensure your agency has the infrastructure in place to manage co-creation is really important. And then also, in order to keep everyone motivated, not only did we give them money, but we also gave them prizes. So the lovely images that you saw being uploaded were because we gave people a prize. We said the best one will win a prize, and they received that at the final workshop. We gave somebody a flip camera for recording stuff, which is always a nice prize. We offered people chocolate and we gave them vouchers. And I always love the fact that if you do market research and you offer people confectionery, it seems to be worth more than money. So it's always so this is the final workshop, and you can just see, I don't know who's the client, who's the respondent. By this point, they had definitely all started working together. We had some visualisers who drew out what people were saying. We stuck ideas on the wall, and then we picked out the ones that we thought were the best and the most motivating, and it seemed to go really well. And then what we had to do as Claro was turn it into something meaningful for Nestle. And this is again perhaps a little bit less interesting for you, but again it struck me that we had a bit of a communication issue, because I had thought co-creation is about putting the clients and the respondents together and them sharing ideas. But when it came to the end product, Nestle wanted us to analyse it all, and then they wanted us to rewrite the new ideas that they'd come up with. And they basically wanted us to take it on as if it was a conventional research project and finish the deal. So again, we go back to this point, hang on a minute, clients only want to be so involved, they actually want the research agency to do quite a lot of the legwork and quite a lot of the thinking. And because I hadn't realised that at the time, we hadn't necessarily delivered them the output. So we turned up with some kind of like rough concept boards going, look, it's great, isn't it? And they're a bit like, where's our neat PowerPoint presentation that you normally do for us? So yeah, you just need to keep talking to your client, I guess, and always deliver them against their expectations. And that, my friends, I think, is pretty much the end of it. This chart just says what the client has done as a result of co-creation, and I guess they went on and developed a range of new concepts to test out. They didn't do it with us, which was always a bit disappointing. They definitely understood those women better because they've really got inside their lives a little bit more. And also, what I absolutely loved about this project was that there was one massive, big, stonking insight, and I've worked for Nestle for 20 years, that came out of this project just simply by reading the diaries that I don't think we would have got if we hadn't done it in any other way. And I guess that goes right back to the beginning, doesn't it, and says, hang on a minute, those ethnographic techniques about trying to understand people's everyday lives, there was something in that, and those workshops where we put on different hats, there was something in that as well. And maybe co-creation is bringing together all of those strands in a more modern and workable way. And that's it.
That was great, thanks Kath. Something for recruiters to think about there, or recruiting for co-creation. I'm just going to open up the floor if anybody wants to ask Kath any questions about her presentation.
How were these respondents on your panel?
Well, not that long. So we saw that they were doing their tasks in November, weren't they? So I think what happened was that we did the Kickstart workshop that awful week of the 16th of November, you know, when everybody wants field work. And of course we were doing it as like an extra project because we weren't making any money for it. And then they did their task for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and then we came and did a final one in the early to middle of December when they did the final kind of, and then we had to work really hard to get those outputs to Nestle in the final presentation. So the panel wasn't very long, but it was really intensive. We got them to work really hard. And I actually think that probably works better because people lose interest, don't they? If you ask someone to be on a panel for a year, you know, it doesn't work.
To be honest, we've done that in the past and they have lost interest, and at the end you're literally dragging things out of them to put on the Yeah, I think kind of keep it short and intensive might be the secret. And if you do a day in the life stuff, if you do, that can actually be, if you've got 15 people, you get a lot of insight out of that. You just don't know what to do with all the data. So. It's interesting about the project manager because this yearly panel that we had, at the beginning they loved this project manager, but by the end of the year they hate him.
Maybe you need to change up your project manager.
Kath said she was the friends with her at the end, or Sophie
yeah, they were. They ended up being friends. Sophie's really charming. Oh my God, she was just charming.
No, our project manager was great as well. Like,
yeah.
I still keep in touch with some of them because some of the people are really friendly, do like that relationship, but the others, I think actually at the end of it, they really accord.
Yeah, and maybe that's also another insight that not all respondents are really going to be up for this kind of thing. And you know, with the Nike example, they were sports fans. They were really involved. And I think co-creation is about taking people that we might have traditionally called leading edge, and asking them to do stuff in a slightly different way. If you get just an ordinary person, I don't mean that in a horrible way, they just might find that really tedious to be having to do this.
I think the length is crucial.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's a really important, presentation that you've given to just even be able to kind of compartmentalise and label it a bit, and just reassure us that some clients don't know that they're asking for co-creation. Because they're asking so things we've been doing over the last 12 months to 18 months, this has been massive. Everyone goes, ethnography.
Yeah.
Actually, now you've put it into this kind of presentation, it's co-creation, and we're doing loads of diary and this and blogs and that, going to their houses, and it is really hard to motivate these people. At the beginning, you know, just asking those questions about what is it you really want to get out of this, what exactly are your expectations of us as a field agency, because we start off and we say, oh, we just want to recruit a few people for a bit of in-homes, and we're going to get them to do a 7-day diary as well, and we just want a bit of that, so we just recruit them. But then you find it evolves into a completely another type of project, and you haven't allowed the time scale for the recruitment, because then people fall out, and then you've got to get this whole panel together, and they fall out because the expectations aren't there at the beginning. So, I mean, in terms of seeing this presentation and understanding from a field perspective, to get the right people, I mean, just even that Kickstart workshop is brilliant. We don't ever talk about doing that with our clients. We do maybe a phone call initially to get to know them, but having them all together in a workshop does bring the whole team together and sets the expectations.
I really feel
but to allow more recruitment time as well, to get the right people.
Absolutely, and it's about hopefully you being able to challenge back and go, this will work really well if you put the effort in. It's the golden rule in life, isn't it? The more you put in, the more you get out. But I think sometimes clients, they've got this kind of magic idea that respondents can give so much, and they forget about their side of the bargain. This is co-creation.
And they forget, you know, when we deal with brand managers, or they're very, very close to their brand, they go, well, who wouldn't want to do this stuff for us? Great. I'm like, yeah, but they don't actually really care about you. They just want to know about a bit of the money, unless, you know, they realise that they become your champions, which is similar to what you said here, you know, or they've got their chocolate partner or whatever. They feel that actually helping the client, and I think from a fieldwork perspective, at the beginning, to get them on board, you know, people need to feel that they're needed and valued, and they're not just coming along to a 2 hour and then being kicked out, because they're giving their lives and a lot of personal stuff, and, you know, reading their blogs to make sure they're doing it, and the point you just made about, you know, God, they hate us at the end of it because they're chasing them. But by reading that stuff, you realise actually how much effort they're putting in. But we do need to educate our clients to make sure that they're getting enough recruitment time up front as well. And I don't know how, you know, you've done
really
that.
Squeezed on that, and I think it's because we were trying to recruit urban girls who were, I think, 20 to 30 who were lively and outgoing. It's not that hard, is it? But actually, as you can see, the recruiter did have shortcuts because she did friends, and I wouldn't. Yeah, and I wouldn't have minded with friends, but she should have told us that. The other thing I forgot to say was that we did the workshops in Malmaison in Leeds, which is a really nice venue and actually quite cheap. And so we tried to make it sort of rewarding for the respondents, that they turn up and go, oh, this is nice, isn't it? And we encouraged them to, one of the workshops we did on an evening where we kind of knew it was a Christmas night, so that they could go out, they'd have the money in their hands, and then they could go out and enjoy themselves afterwards, to get this kind of good feeling about it. And we really tried to make them have a laugh as well, because I think that's part of it, and the clients too.
I think, you know, just when you said that, you know, with the recruiters and the friends and stuff, you know, having our recruitment team really on board with that as well, to know what is coming out of this.
Yeah.
Because by them being aware of that at the beginning, you know, it's like, well, we're going to know, it's going to reveal so much.
Yeah.
So it's going to reveal a lot about the recruitment as well. Yeah. And therefore, we've got to get this right. Every person involved in the process has got to be in to 100%.
I mean, and that's another nice thing about this. Everyone can be reading all of the stuff they're putting onto the website.
I think it's also useful from a field perspective, back to what Jeanette just said, in terms of trying to get as much information from the client at the beginning, so you know how to charge it out properly. Because, you know, it is very different recruiting 7 people to then say, oh, can you phone all of them every night at 8 o'clock?
Sign a project manager in the evening.
Yeah, it's like, well, I wasn't going to watch EastEnders, but yeah, sure, why not? So, you know, it is important to get that information up front, because you know it can't be very vague, and as Kath said, welcome to that at the beginning, co-creation means lots of different things to lots of different people, so it's very important.
And at the end, you end up saying, God, I wish I'd never taken on this project.
Yeah.
We charged it out of this.
And
everybody's involved, and we put in so much time.
Question, Wendy and then Gemma.
Okay. We've got quite a lot of, we're recruiters from Research Opinions, we've got quite a lot of projects on the go now, which are up to a year long. But what we do find is that after a while, our client tends to lose interest, and they're ringing us back up saying, will you ring them, will you tell them what to do? But we don't actually know the ins and outs of the project. So we can say, you know, you've not logged on for 2 weeks, but it has no real meaning.
I guess that's about challenging clients and saying, do you know what?
Yeah.
This other client, how will you be in a year's time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jenna, go on.
Okay. Creativity, I mean, it's always an issue trying to get good respondents to good groups in general. And I know that some clients put in the question about how do you feel about yourself? Are you opinionated? Are you creative? What kind of question did you use in recruitment stage to find really creative people?
My personal belief is that if you ask people if they feel like they've got a good imagination, because it's a really simple question. And I also think it's down to the researcher, because most people are creative.
You just got to bring it out.
I think it's about techniques, and I think there's a bit of nonsense about creativity where what clients are actually asking for, researchers, is confident people that are kind of wacky, and they're not honest about it because they don't want to look bad in in that workshop situation. But if I do a workshop with clients, I don't specify they all have to be creative. That would be rude. If they somehow manage to do the job. I'm sorry,
You come up with campaigns to get with the last being next 6 seconds.
I know the swear words at first.
Anybody else before we take a quick break? Excellent. And can I just have a question? Is everyone warm enough or is everyone freezing today? Okay, well, warm enough.
Warm enough.
Right, so 11:30, so if you want to go and grab yourselves a refill and a biscuit and stuff, or breath of fresh air, so back in 20 minutes, that would be fantastic. Back to the third floor. Yeah, sorry,
Right.
Yeah.